be able to respond to you. Amen. All right. Mr. Stewart, good evening and welcome to the program. Oh, I think your mic is on mute, so you
Hi,
just mute the mic there. Yeah.
thank you very much.
Right.
Yes. Good evening to you and to all of your viewers and your listeners.
All right. Now let's start from the most fundamental of questions. Um, why, first of all, is it necessary for us to be making a distinction between the boys and the girls? Why can't we just say children making the transition to adults? Why do you think it's important for us to even make that separation?
Well, because we are different, and whether or not we like it or not, we are inherently different. God has never made two of the same thing. Somebody said, if both of us are the same, one of us is unnecessary, and it's not me. So God, even the hairs of our head, different, or DNA different, or fingerprints are different. I don't know why is it we figure that we're going to have both boys, men and women, boys and girls the same. No, we will be different. And so I have no problem with that. And if anybody has a problem with that, what they do is when they create their own earth, they could make that as a law.
Good. So that's a good starting point. It's important because there
Yeah.
will be some who will come up and say, why what happened to the girls? Why are we always on the boys? But I was thinking about it today.
Mm.
Um, and I was trying to reflect, for as far back as I could remember. Is
Yes.
it a situation that the boys now? I mean, people say it, but I want to get your analysis.
Hmm.
Is it a situation that the boys or men of today are so much worse or so much different from what would have happened 40, 60, 80 years ago? Or is it that overall the scenario has changed and that is why it has amplified the situation that we've been seeing with our boys and men?
Well, I think these situations have changed. Long time, it was clear when it comes to boys. It was clear when it came to our role and the part that we played. It was not anything that is challenged in society. But today, when we see so many changes in the family structure and who is going to be taking care of the finances, who's going to take care of providing and all of that, with women, with their ascension and their educational level, etc. Some of the lines have become blurred, but that does not change because let me tell you, when you look at the role in a skit, in a drama, can always change. Today, you could have one actor playing the role of a police, and in the next show, he is, or next series
Right.
of a next program, he might be a surgeon. Roles can always change. And so, when it comes to the family, you could have the roles changing. However, responsibilities don't change. So,
Right.
the director of the show can be an actor, but he's still responsible. He's the director. And when we have the changing roles in the family as to who washes where or who cleans the yard and so on, those could always change. But as far as the responsibility is concerned, the accountability, that doesn't change. When Eve ate of the food, God came and he called Adam because the responsibility never changed. He is to account for his wife. He is the person that God would have gone to. And when it comes to the family, we have to be clear in our heads that as a man in the family, God is going to hold us accountable, and that we cannot pass that on. We cannot shirk that and give it and say it's your mother and so on. We are going to be accountable to God
But
for that.
I was
Yeah.
wondering, in all, and I respect, women, striving to be equal and having equality and all of those things. I have no challenge, with women
Mhm.
wanting to be given a fair chance. But I'm wondering, from on the flip side, do you think that men have started to sort of take the back seat since women are now of more prominence, women are advancing, women are getting out there and working, and you think that has pushed our men somewhat into that retrograde position?
Unfortunately, I think that you have a point there that we have taken a back seat. We have given up and we just say, well, let them go ahead. We haven't that asserted ourselves, which is something that we need to change and move that around. But in the end, it still comes back to, is that the best thing? Because God never did design it for that. And once it has not been
Right.
designed for that, it cannot operate as that in the first place. It cannot successfully operate like that.
Right, because I mean, I sometimes I get worried, men initially men were out there, the breadwinners and so forth, and women started, okay, I need to work, I can add to the income, that's fine, but all of a sudden you look around and you see men liming during the day. The women are busy out getting to work, and men are just liming. In fact, I ask myself sometimes, I don't know how these men find wives and women. Why would a woman choose a man who is just liming? I could never figure that part out. But it seems as if a lot of men are getting very comfortable, just allowing women to get out there to work,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
be managers and all of that, and think, oh well, we don't really, it really doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
Uh, do you see that, or let me ask you if you could see that being changed? How do you think, what is required to change that type of mindset of our men from that casual state into one that is more productive and more engaging as it is supposed to be?
Well, first of all, in order to change that, I think we need to have a discussion among the men. And when you call conferences and workshops and such, women attend. But when you call for men, men really don't come together in as the droves as the women do. But in order for us to settle this, we've really got to sit down and talk to men. And that's why the group that I formed called Be Men, Be Male Examples Now. Our intention is to start doing what a number of other male groups are doing, to start bringing attention to the issues of men and or responsibility in the home or responsibility in society or responsibility as leaders. The Bible says, quit you like men, be strong as men, and operate as men. And we need to take pride in being a man and in taking charge of our families and in taking charge of our domain in this thing, right? But this cannot be fixed by women. Women have been making the effort to fix it and fix us, and we thank God for that. But
Right.
it has to be championed by men. And so, what you are doing here today, of having this program, Boys to Men, making the transition, is your part in this whole scheme of reaching men and doing that transition and transformation that we're talking about.
Because I was about to ask you the question, I mean, based on your experience, because I've been in situations where we try to plan events for men. We tried having a fishing event. You try different things, cards, dominoes. And even if men come, they are not really engaged for some reason or the other. And then you ask yourself, what do I really need to do to get these men to come together and talk? What is it we're doing wrong, even from the church perspective, society? Why can't we just get the men to sit and talk? What is it we're doing wrong?
Well, before we could sit and talk, we've got to be able to develop a safe space. And I'm not too sure that society has allowed us a safe space. Let me show you when a man goes through his issues, the way how society is going to respond to his issues is going to determine how much he's going to trust society.
Right.
We had in Trinidad and Tobago recently a guy who went out with a girl that he met on the internet. I don't know if you've been following that story here. He went out with a girl that he met on the internet, and he was abused and he was violently treated. And the whole thing is that the gentleman or the people who ambushed him asked him to suck their toe, Now, we have, as a society, turned that into a joke. We have made fun out of it. We have laughed him. We have posted where he works, etc. What that has done is tell a man and other men who do not have not come out yet with some of the challenges that they have. You dare not come out and say what you're really going through, because we are going to joke about you and we're going to hate you, both men and women. So we have not had a safe space. So even when we call together men and men come there, they come and they listen, but they are not going to share deep stuff
Right,
with
right.
us, except we start creating that safe space. And the talk has got to be that I don't joke about those things, because I want to send a signal that we take the issues of men very, very seriously. And a number of people are doing that. And I think in those cases, you're finding that more and more men are coming out and saying, this is my issue. We had the recent situation with is it Prince Harry,
Yes.
coming out and talk about some of his own issues regarding his family and regarding some of the things that are said about his family on the interview with Ukfa. And I think that's the direction, and that gives hope that, hey, listen, we can afford to speak out. And he said he kept silent all this time, but now he's speaking out. That is now going to open up the floodgates for men to be able to say, hey, I've been going through some stuff and I want to talk about it. I want to share what's going on. And then those forums now going to now be even more impactful in the efforts that we are making.
Yeah, I know when you think about it, it takes us right back to childhood, where parents say, boys aren't supposed to cry. People say don't show emotion, and all of those things. And you have to be tough. You have to be a man. What you're crying about. And in some cases, I've seen boys happen to be in a fight with a girl, and instead of a parent or an adult treating it as, why are you fighting, with it, they tell the guy, you make that girl beat you. Right? And that is how we are trained. And I think it transitions into adulthood, into real life, into a wider society, a culture in the wider society, in terms of men are supposed to react this way, and women are supposed to react this way. Mr. Stewart, what we're saying there now is that it requires a societal, a cultural shift, a major paradigm shift at the societal level. How is that even going to be possible?
Well, there are things that have to change over a period of time, and we can't change it overnight. Somebody said it takes a mile or two to turn a ship around, because a ship wouldn't turn on a dime. You see,
Right.
so it will take some time. But it's both the men and the women need to make the change. And I'll say this: I have seen women go up to young boys. He might be 3 years old, 4 years old, well dressed and looking smart and so on. And I listen to women say, oh, this is so cute. He'll have plenty woman. What have you just told that boy? You've told him the very thing you are complaining about men who have grown up, having heard that in their psyche, that he will have plenty woman because he looks good. He grows up now, looking good, and has plenty woman, and the women themselves turn around and say that. And I'm saying, we all, both men and women, have got to make the change in society and the way how we do things, the way how we even treat boys regarding how when they go through problems, and the way we treat girls. Of course, we love up the girls if they have injured themselves or something has gone wrong in their life and so on, and we just tell the boy, suck it up. You understand? But he
Right.
is going through pain also, and he needs succor. He needs the kind of support and assistance also, in addition to the girl, not in exemption from her, but in addition to. And that is all men have been asking, really.
All right, and it reminds me of this point that I'm seeing, Kevin Romero with there. It says, we need to renew our mindsets. Two siblings fall, both 7 years of age. The brother and sister. The sister is consoled. The boy is told, what is asked, what are you crying about? Big boys don't cry, and that's how it has been. He said boys
Mm.
are trained to keep themselves and bottle up and grown pressure agents, who may only have unhealthy and detrimental coping mechanisms. And
Yes, yes.
girls are taught to share, with each other. that's I'm sure you would have come across a lot of scenarios like this
Mm,
where where there's a segregation in terms of how boys and girls are treated. But I
yes.
want to ask you this because we really want to talk about boys to men. I know you've had a lot of interaction with boys during your camps and so forth. Um, what are some of the feedback you've been given from the boys in terms of what are some of the core issues that have been affecting them that they are so concerned about?
I'll use the statement that a 16-year-old boy told me when I gave a speech to a group in Trinidad. He came to me after and he said, Mr. Stewart, I love my mother. I adore my mother. But she's treating me as a girl. He's 16 years old. He has to be home by 6 o'clock. He has said he's treating her as a girl. This is his statement. Well, because one would think in a society like ours, she should be home by 6 o'clock. And I think that is what his concept is. But regardless of it, he doesn't have privilege to do a number of things at 16 years old. He said, I've never gone fishing, never catch crab, never done the things that as a young man he hears other boys may have done. And we have a growing number of boys who have never done that. Many of the mentorship programs that I'm doing, a lot of guys have never done it. We have 15-year-old boys, and we teach them how to play marbles, pitching. They would hold the marble between their fingers like this and do that while standing upright. They have never gone into the dirt to stoop down. Why? Because many of our boys are being raised by single mothers who cannot take them out at midnight to catch crab when crab is walking, cannot take them fishing, cannot do some of the rough and tumble stuff that they are doing. And the boys have been complaining, though they love their mother. So, in order for us to do that, more men have got to be participating in this process of child rearing, because we're going to have the guys coming up very, very frustrated. So that is number one. If you ask me, number two, one of the other things that I think the boys have been complaining about is the fact that as they start growing older, in order to control the boys, you have shouting mothers. This is what they say. And where you have the mothers who try to exert power over them. Now they are 17 years old, 18 years old in some cases, and so on, but not being released with this manhood that is coming up inside of them. And they are saying that they would like to be able to have a bit more responsibility, being allowed them to be able to demonstrate that they are becoming men. In fact, what have we found is that sometimes they begin to resent that shouting and that tremendous restraint, and they cannot wait for the time when it will develop where they would be able to go out on their own and do otherwise. So the mothers are doing their best under the circumstances that they're having, because somebody has got to control the home. And if it's a single mother, then she is charged with that responsibility, but she has so many other responsibilities. That's why we need men to go back into the homes in order to be able to form some form of assistance to these women.
All right, so that's a lot of things you said there, Mr. Stewart. Now, I want us to dissect it a little bit because we're trying to find solutions to these challenges. First of
Mhm.
all, let's talk about the single parent woman, the woman who is the single parent. Let me be technically correct. Um, we understand that she might come home, she might be trying her best to be the best parent ever, trying to fill the shoes of mother and father. Goes to work, come home tired, and this boy needs to be given some attention. He needs to be given some guidance. Um, how does she? What is the best approach? What is your best advice to that mother in terms of taking charge of that child? So first of all, he doesn't feel that something is wrong because I don't have a father in this house, and my mother certainly can't fill the shoes. And the only thing I could do is begin to act out because my mother has no idea to do. What type of advice do you give to those single parent women in terms of taking charge of those boys?
I want to suggest to the single mothers that as the boy grows, attach responsibility to um, permission. The boy is going to want to do things. He want to go places. He'll want to own things. Instead of just buying him something that he is asked for, whether it is a tablet, a game, a video game, etc. If he wants to go somewhere, attach it to something of responsibility and say, yes, if you handle this, if you do this, if you operate in this way, then I'm going to be able to give you that. Sometimes I think some of the boys are spoiled in that they don't have something that they work towards. They don't have anything that they need to be able to prove that they have developed and become responsible in before that they are given permission. And that's one of the more crucial areas, because a boy who has responsibility is a boy who develops a certain type of accountability in his life.
Right. And we also have the situation where, parents are hurt. I've seen situations where single mothers are, when I look at this child, I see a father, and I'm still getting over a divorce or unfaithful situation, or some, maybe even sudden loss, could be death,
Mm.
and I'm hurting. I am myself, I'm trying to figure this thing out. I'm trying to get over, or settle my own self, my own mind. And I have to take care of you, and you yourself want to act up while I'm trying to figure my own life out. It's an additional dynamic. I'm not sure if you've come across situations like those.
Yeah, and to the point where sometimes the one spouse, whether it's the man or the woman, begin to ill speak the other spouse in the presence of the child or with the child, something that we call parental alienation, where we begin to poison the child's mind against the other partner, which is a dangerous thing, because sooner or later, remember now, the child loves both father and mother, generally loves father and mother. So when one begins to ill speak the next, you're going to find that the child may very well absorb that and feel a measure of hatred towards the one that is ill spoken. But the child is going to go up and recognize that some of them may not be true, and then the child begins to hate the one who was bad talking. It does nobody good, neither the man nor the woman, and it does the child no good for a parent to be bad talking a child in the presence. And even, yes, we have our issues, we have our stress in having to raise the children and so on, but that's what adults do. And we need to preserve and protect the children for having to deal with adult issues. Let me tell you, there was a 13-year-old girl who had called in on one of our programs, and she was explaining that her mother and father separated, and she had gone to three different places in the area where she lives to find a place for her father to rent close to where she is. Why is that 13-year-old girl having to go to look for a place to rent? It because she's too engaged in the issues of the adults, when she should be enjoying life and playing and enjoying all of that childhood. She is there worrying about a mother and father separating, and the father having to live too far away from them in order to get a place close. And those are the hurtful things that children are having to bear because of some of the issues that adults experiencing.
All right, let's talk about another point that you made, and that is getting men back into the homes. I looked at the statistics in Jamaica, for example, the number of single parents they have, single mothers that are there, the number of children who are grown up not even knowing who their fathers are. I see it in many other places across the Caribbean, even here in Guyana, where you know uh, women, you see a couple moving around quite fine, and all in love, walking, holding hands, and somewhere between the delivery and maybe the first 6 months, all of a sudden you see this is a single mother. I mean, it's not everywhere, but I see it a lot. um, and all of a sudden this woman is tasked with this responsibility of taking care of this child, and the man just is gone, trying to find somebody else who he can get pregnant, somebody else who he can leave to be a single mother. How do we get our men to begin to take greater responsibility for their actions, and to take responsibility for their children that they have brought into this life?
Well, make no mistake about it. Equally to the guilt of the man, also goes guilt of the woman. Every
Correct.
time a man has a child with a woman, that woman is involved.
Correct.
So, I know that sometimes we say, okay, then look at how many children he has, but look at how many children he has, and they are with women. And again, this is the imbalance that we experience. A man who has plenty children with different women
Mhm.
is a womanizer. That's what we call him. But a
Right.
woman who has plenty children for different men is called a poor single mother. You understand? So we need to be able those are some of the things that we need to also balance, because women have been complaining of some of the things that men are given privilege over and given a bly with, and they are not. And it's the same thing in this case. So yes, you would have that a man and a woman engage, but I feel many times these engagements and these relationships are not well thought out. I think that because a lot of people get into relationships with the wrong aim, wrong purpose. I think we are driven by our biological needs rather than our societal need to
So,
develop and to expand. And that is what is causing us to now get into relationships that we find out after we are in it. It is not worth staying in, and people now leave at the end. It starts wrong when the Christ disciples asked, should a man divorce his wife for any reason? The first thing Christ said was, listen, in the beginning, he went back to the start. Before you even talk about divorce, in the beginning, he made them male and female, which means while you were single, that was where it started, not when you were married. And so we need to go back to looking at how we have been operating as singles and operating as a male and operating as a female in order to bring the answers.
yeah, I mean, that is a very valid point that you, very, very valid point you made. Because I usually get very concerned. In fact, I always champion that very point that a woman doesn't get pregnant or on her own. It's a man, a woman come together. They both have equal responsibility. A woman could always take the necessary, even if it take the necessary action to ensure that she doesn't get pregnant. In fact, if we look at it from a Christian perspective, we shouldn't have even had that challenge, much of that challenge,
Mm-hmm.
if we follow the Christian principles that we ought to follow, which
But
is,
unfortunately, it is even in Christendom. All those issues
correct,
are still in Christendom, and that's the unfortunate thing. So we have not been
correct,
setting the pace for what should be taking place. And that's why I think that the church has a responsibility and a great responsibility to start bringing back the chastity and the security of what family life presents and the joy of marriages. You'll find even preachers, their marriages are now going on the rocks, etc.
correct.
So we have a grave responsibility to help each other out in this.
Pastor Baines always says that pastors could only teach you what they know, right?
True.
Pastor you can't expect a pastor to teach you what they themselves are struggling with, And I think that that's it's part of the problem. But the church indeed has a responsibility to begin to to teach
Mhm.
in this way, to tell people that these things still stand, these expectations still stand. It hasn't changed. You're still expected if you want to take your time. In fact, I tell my children, enjoy your singleness. You
Yeah.
know, don't
Hmm.
don't don't get too consumed. I see some people in their 20s, early 20s, 2021, stressed out that they are single. um, and it seems like no man wants me. I say, but you're just 20.
Yes.
Enjoy
Yes.
life. Be single. Go out. Nobody has to ask you what time you're coming, who you're going with. Nothing of such. Go out and just have fun, learn, discover yourself, and then you can commit to that. In fact, I tell them there's so much responsibility in marriage that enjoy your singleness. Um, Let me just
I think we make single people feel guilty being single,
yes, yes,
and we make them feel less than whole. And one of the things that we try to let people know who are single is that you're 100% whole as you are, because
correct,
God did not make you half baked. You were 100%. And the mathematical miracle is taking a 100% man, bringing him together with a 100% woman, and making them one. So he's not 200%. 100 and 100 gives you one. So
correct,
therefore, if a man has to leave a woman, and that comes back to the whole issue about this domestic violence that we're having whenever there's a breakup in a relationship. If a man leaves a woman or a woman leaves a man, he's supposed to be leaving with his 100%. She is leaving with 100%. They are not broken. You see? So therefore, you're supposed to be able to recover and move on without having to figure that the world has ended and you have to now go and kill somebody because you cannot live anymore with your fraction of who you are. You see? So until we bring whole people together, that somebody is truly single, then it is when we're going to have better relationships taking place.
right. And I was going to ask you about that question a bit later. In fact, very shortly we will be doing a program on domestic violence. But since you raised that point, I often wonder what is the issue. Why can't people just separate anymore and they go their way, they go their good old way and start their new life, whatever it is they want to do. Why does it? Why are we seeing more and more situations where and rightfully and to be fact truthful, in more cases than the other, it's a man abusing the woman or taking the woman's life rather than the other way. Whereas the other way around, a lot of times it's just the woman claiming to be retaliating from excessive abuse. What is causing that shift? Why are we seeing so many cases like that where men just can't make a clean cut?
Mhm. Well, I don't have the total answer on that because I think they may have to have some socio economic studies on it to be able to come up with all the answers why. But I have some suppositions that I could be able to put forward, to say that I think that abandonment issues might be some of the things that, again, remember now, most of these boys who going into men grow up with an abandoned home, dysfunctional home with the absence of a father. So therefore there's this abandonment that they already have, and then they get into a relationship with a woman who abandons them. So there is going to be a pushback. There's going to be a reaction that those men have, not a justification for it. There's nothing that would justify a man hitting a woman. There's nothing going to justify a man beating a woman. That is absolutely understood. But we're giving an explanation, not a justification. These abandonment issues. Attachment also is one of the issues. Attachment style is where you find security in somebody. When you have a child that feels secure because of a relationship that he has with his mother, or within a family, gives a person ability to be able to operate and integrate into society. When the attachment styles or the attachment methods are broken and that person doesn't feel safe at all, that person is going to sabotage the entire environment. and sabotage their lives. Many of the criminals, many of the people who are committing the murders, etc., you ask them, do you have a stable home? Do you have a functional home? The answer invariably is going to be no. So once the person doesn't have that attachment, could you imagine somebody who doesn't know what it is to love a mother? Somebody who doesn't know how it is to love, be in a relationship, in a family where your brothers and sisters get along in unity and in happiness and strength. You don't know what it feels like. So you have no idea when you kill somebody else's relative, what they feel. You
Right.
think they're feeling what you feel. And nobody cares. Nobody cares about me, so therefore nobody should care about you either. So until we start getting back the home and the family in a loving atmosphere where brethren dwell together in unity, it is then that we're going to start controlling some of the things that are taking place in society. Otherwise, it is prayers and God.
Yeah, but Mr. Jordan, in terms of the um, dynamics, in terms of economics, uh, parents are out working. That family setting seems to be fractured somewhat. Back in the days, family would sit and have breakfast together or lunch or at least dinner. Now it's you don't see families coming together. It's always a rush. Somebody trying to get to work. Somebody's tired. Do you think all of that is contributing to what is happening at a larger level at society?
From my personal view, I think so. Yes. One of the reasons why I give up um, secular job is that because of this. Whenever my children had sports and they had to run or something took place in their school, or things that were taking place in major milestones in their lives, I was working heavy. My wife had senior position in the secular world, etc. And getting time off was a difficulty. So they would run a race, they would look in the stand, and father and mother not there because both of
Right.
them striving to acquire wealth, material things. So it is when I understood this that my wife and I made a decision, and she made a decision. She's going to give up work so that whenever there is something, she can attend. And I also gave up work where I don't have to apply for leave and wait until 3-4 months after the date that you apply for. Is then now you're getting approval, etc. It was just wasn't working. So that now, just this week, my daughter, who's an adult, 20 something years old, had to be taken for medical attention in Trinidad. And both of us went with her. So three of us went. Before that could not have taken place. We would
Right.
have to send on our own, or one parent would have to go. But we take joy in the fact that we both can be there for every situation that the child has, because you now have control. Unfortunately, not everybody can do that. But we felt that we needed to put the priorities in place. And once we did that, we felt we have 4 children. We did that, and when we did that, we found that there's a marked behavioral, developmental, and relationship difference when we did that than before when we did made such a decision. So we see all the benefits in it. It reduced the income in the family, but God has always promised, because David said, "I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed out begging bread." And God has kept his part of the promise. And we will keep his part and say, listen, the family is his most important institution on the earth. And we are going to dedicate ourselves to that part of it.
But as you're speaking, it brings me back to the coming back to the point that we discussed earlier. To me, the solution about this whole thing, it has a lot to do with who do you choose to build your family with. How do you determine a life partner? Do you determine? I don't want to use the term "who I get pregnant for" because it doesn't line up with what is expected from a Christian perspective. Uh, that's why I'm saying, how do I choose my life partner? Do I take my time and invest sure that we can I can work with this person, we can work together, we can set some guidelines, we can set some principles for family life. If we want to make some changes, some adjustments, we can do it together. We can explore what is in the best interest of our children, and this is before you get your children, obviously. So that when you get into that marriage and you start making children, don't have to worry about making all of those adjustments, because you now have somebody who is compatible, somebody who is going to work with you, somebody who understands you, and then you can now focus on raising your children. But then when you miss that step, when you miss that process, and you end up just getting pregnant, all of a sudden managing the children, managing family, managing life becomes a lot more challenging. I don't know if you see it that way, if you think there's another solution, if you think that there's some other way.
I think we've interpreted family planning as the pill and condoms.
Hmm.
I think
Right.
family planning is exactly that, planning your family. So
Correct.
even before you get married, you should plan your family. And it is important for those of us who are Bible believing. I think that God has determined that a man must know where he's going. A man must have a vision for his life. That is what separates you
Right.
from a boy. A man knows where he's going with his life, and a woman is his help meet to get there.
Hmm.
So it is hard for a woman to help a man who's going nowhere. He does not have a vision for himself. And again, this is one of the breakdown that I think that we do have. That a lot of us do not know where we want to take our lives. And so
Hmm.
therefore we have not been able to plan. So therefore we do not have a woman who could be able to now assist us in that direction. That's one. The second thing is that when we're talking about this planning of the family, I sat down with a group of young people to show how sometimes we really don't have a plan, and some of these schools that bringing out people in the secondary and tertiary. And I asked them, what's your vision for yourself? Well, I want to be a doctor and so on. Okay, all right. So based upon where you are now, and I guess the age because of the institution that they're in. How long would it take you to get to your first stage to do your degree? And they said 3 years. All right. How long would it take you to do your master's? Right. And they said that, and then to get your doctorate. After you get your doctorate, what do you need to do? They said, well, we have to pay off student loan and we have to do this and the other. So we calculated the age. And then what do you want to do that? I'm not getting married until I have my own house, my own property. How long would it take you to get that? And and so we calculated it. And then they said, once they have that, then they're going to settle down to get
Hmm.
married. One of the things that
Right.
we calculated, some of them, at the time that they settled down to get married, it proved that they would have their first child at 60 years old. Yeah. And that's because they never sat down and planned it. They just have a wish list. I want to do all of these things, but did not cater my age and the length of time it's taking. You having your first child at 60. You understand? So, in order for us to be able to do family planning, is really sitting down, first of all, and knowing where you want to be in life. And when you get into a partner relationship, you mesh your plans with the other person's plan and you all work it out. And that's where counseling comes in premarital counseling. Yes, go
And
ahead.
parents also have a responsibility, to work with your children so they understand this concept before they have to go to some other session to learn it. Parents should begin to tell their children, um, uh, we have to structure your life. We have to come up with a plan. What is it you want to do? What do you see yourself doing? Yes, as you said, a lot of people want to be a doctor, a nurse, whatever, but then nobody thinks beyond that. Well, not nobody. A lot of people don't think beyond that stage. Okay, what subjects do I need to be doing? Let's start from there. How after you finish school, you get your CXC. What is the next step? How are you going to pay for it? And you ask yourself all of those questions to help guide those decisions. But
Mm.
A lot of times, children go through right CXC, some go to university, complete a degree, and then suddenly realize that this is really not the direction I want to go. I sorry I wasted time, but I really don't like this thing because
Yes, yes, yes,
thought wasn't given to that.
yes,
Right?
yes, yes.
But I
And
wanna
yes.
go ahead.
No,
Go
no.
ahead.
No, I was saying that it's long after leaving school, I knew what I wanted to do, and that is so unfortunate because that means I would have lost years, and that I
Correct.
think is the general position of many people. Whenever you go
Correct.
to some of these schools to give a motivational speech and so on, and you ask, what do you want to be? Some may have an idea, but you ask them now, so have you started gathering the information as to how you're going to now achieve that career? They have not done a single thing of it. And others have no idea what they want to come out to be. So you have sat 5 subjects, you have 2 A levels, and then by the time you figure out what you want, you've now got to go back to school because you did subject that would not get you there.
Correct.
So
Right.
you understand the kind of
Yes.
situation that we find ourselves. Yes,
I
but
want
you're going to ask something.
right. I want us so because I want to keep us back into. I know we've gone in all directions tonight. That's fine. But I want to come back a little bit to the boys. That's the
Mm,
focus of the discussion. Today I was in a community and I saw 3 young guys, probably between the ages of 8 and 11, walking, and there was one with a toy gun. And it reminded me of a western movie. This guy was so confident, with his gun in his hand. Almost, I almost thought it was a real gun, to be honest. He
mm,
was so confident with his stride, that I am walking with this gun. And I thought for a moment, how many guns did I get for Christmas? How many guns were we given as boys as presents? And I started thinking, are we to really blame our parents for what is happening out there with all those guys running around shooting people, killing people, feeling that I am only empowered if I have a gun in my waist? Do you think it links right back to what was happening 15, 20 years ago? 30, well, we were younger, a lot longer than that, but you know what
mm.
I mean? That
Yes,
long ago.
yes,
Can we
yeah.
trace it back to that?
Well, whether there's a causational link to say that when boys play with guns, they'll end up shooting somebody, I'm not too sure that we could claim a causational link, but we can
Well, I've
probably
never shot
claim,
anybody, by the way, and I've played
right,
with a lot of toy guns, right?
but we can claim a correlation, you see.
Right.
And I'll say this because a friend of mine who's East Indian, he I've we've been friends for years, so I've been able to see his children grow up, his grandchildren grow up, and I see now his great grandchildren growing up. But one of the things that I always admired is that he always bought toy trucks, toy backhoes, and toy tools.
Right.
But I've seen his children grow up, own hardware,
Wow.
drive truck, drive backhoe, and I see his grandchildren doing that based upon
Wow.
what they play with. So I'm wondering whether there is a correlation between what children play with and what they utilize in their childhood. My grandson is 3 years old and he had a piece of stick that shaped like a gun, and I see him point and he ball bow. No, I said, no boy, come here. Let's talk about, and I took the stick away and I said, and I started there, I don't want to see you do that. Don't want to see you practice that. Because I don't know whether, as I said, I don't know if it's a causation, but I don't want it to become something that takes place. Could it be because our girls grew up playing with dollies that they like homemaking, and our boys grew up playing with caps gun and water gun? Why we seem to be attracted to guns? So if we start looking at what we give our children to play with, you've seen children. I've seen children who like books. And I was at the airport, and this girl was inside of a pram, and she's just studiously reading the book, and I'm sure she doesn't understand all the words, but she's staring at it. And I engaged the parents, and they said, this child just picks up any book, any book, and just stares at it. Could we not say that there's a correlation between that and what she will come out to be? There's a high chance she's going to be coming out to do something that takes up that kind of energy of reading and gives her the kind of skills in reading. So that is one of the things that I want to encourage parents to do. Start encouraging our children during those early days, the formative years, to participate in things that are worthy, and so on. Let them play with pen and pencil and so on. Yes.
Right. Right. Good. I mean, we just have about 7 minutes or so left. If you have a question for Mr. Stewart, you can just drop it in that comment, and I will make sure that we get it to him so that he can answer, hopefully within the next few minutes. I want to touch on a very important issue. I've noticed, and you've seen the reports come out, that girls seem to be doing a lot better than our boys in school. And in some cases, boys have turned out to be underachievers. Um, what based on your experience, what do you think might be responsible for that disparity?
I think girls communicate by words and discussion, and a classroom setting is ideal for a girl to listen to a lecturer. She doesn't have testosterone running all over her body where she is uneasy. She needs to stand up every 2 minutes and so on. So sitting quiet for half an hour, 1 hour in a classroom may not necessarily disrupt the girl. It may very well fall in line with what she wants, and the chit chat. But the studies have shown, from those that I have read, is that boys, because of the testosterone levels that they have been misdiagnosed as ADHD, have saying that they have attention deficit, etc., and been given medication to deal with. Now they are saying that that is a misdiagnosis and they should now withdraw that. So a boy learns in an environment completely different. Even some of the assignments that they are given, you ask a child in primary school, write a day, a walk in the park. She's going to write, and she's going to give experience, and she's going to give you a good essay on that. But the boy may not be able to give you a good essay on that. But if you ask in that same thing, our boy, write your experience in making a kite, he will do a better job at that assignment than the girl would in writing that assignment. So I think we need to start separating the boys and the girls' educational path and the method that we use to be able to teach them. Boys are very hands-on and tactile. They like to hold things and so on. So we can be able to break apart something and build it back. So as far as explaining it and talking it and so on, we may not be that good. And that is because a man thinks mainly on one side of his brain, and a woman has easy access to both sides of her brain in order to process things. And so that gives her an advantage in that, but that does not make her brighter. You see, because we have proven that men, after while the girl advances earlier in age in that area, the boy eventually catches up with that level of intelligence, etc. But it is the two different teaching styles that we have to focus on in order so that boys could now excel as well as girls. It's not that they are dunce, but it is the teaching styles I am of the firm belief, my personal belief is.
But something has troubled me, and I've seen it in Tobago, I've seen it in Guyana, I've seen it in the US, I've seen it many places. When you go to school and you check the register, you literally see 50% boys, 50% girls. It's thereabout. Very, very even. But then you get into university and you see primarily girls. You go into the workplace, you see in many workplaces mostly women. These days I go to the gas station, I see 8 women and 2 men. All right, that's the ratio. You go in the banks, you go everywhere. It's almost like women are everywhere, and the ratio is tilted. Pendulum swings to the direction of the woman. And I ask myself, where are our men? Why are they not showing up in society? Why I'm not seeing a male dominated? And again, not that I have any issue with women in the workplace and at the executive level and all of that, but why aren't we seeing more of our men prevalent and active in society? Where are they in the first place?
Well, I think there are a number of answers for that. We might not have all the answers, but let's take just a quick survey. How many children do you have?
Three.
How many are girls and how many are boys?
All three are girls.
That's right. You understand? When you check the birth rate, from my understanding, we have a higher birth rate of females than we have of men. So therefore, you will have a proliferation of women um, in society. Or Calypso Sparrow, Mighty Sparrow, sang a song 20 to 1. You understand? Which means 20 women to 1 man. So you're going to have that. And then now, in addition to that, more women are excelling in the classroom, as we have just said. So
Right.
they are now, so even though we start off in primary school 50-50, now when it comes to passing to go on to secondary and tertiary and so on, you're going to have a higher pass rate of women. And so therefore, it is natural that they should operate and occupy many of the major areas because they are the ones qualified. If you're looking at it not from a gender standpoint, but from competency standpoint, it is natural that a woman should hold it because she has the qualification. So I think that that has to be taken into consideration, the birth rate, and also we have to look at the fact that they are ones coming out with the education and so on. So they are going to be there, but also you're going to have to look that they are women seem to be more industrious. On the street side, you're going to find more men. In the jails, you're going to find more men. In the bars, you're going to find more men. So, in addition to what we've said, we have a lot of men who are just allowing themselves to drift along life. Too many of them, if I may say so.
Correct, correct. I mean, that's a song point, and it's sad that we have to get to that when we're at the end of the program,
Mm.
um, because it really answers the question. Our men are around, they are somewhere, they are on the
Mhm.
streets, they are in the bars, they're linemen, some are playing games, some are gambling, and all of that, and allowing the women to really just go ahead and dominate. Um, I want us to round up, but I want you to just, in summary, talk about the best way as parents, whether single mothers, complete families, that we can allow our boys to make a transition to manhood, and excel in society, be great men in society.
I think the best definition for that I could think of is in First Corinthians chapter 13, where Paul said, when I was a child, I speak as a child. I understood life as a child, and I thought as a child. There are three things that defines a man: his thinking, his understanding, and his speech. And so, if we really want men to excel, we've got to work on those three aspects of it. Paul says, when I became a man, I put away childish things. And in putting away childish things, I pity that you have now touched that aspect of it, because I think this is the core of the discussion that we needed to have. What makes a boy, and what makes a man? How does a boy transition into a man? And that is where, when you listen to a man speak, you can tell, or listen to an adult male speak, you can tell yourself, oh yes, this is a man I'm hearing, because whatever comes through his mouth must pass his thoughts first. Because as a
Correct.
man thinks in his heart, so is he. And his understanding of life is what determines how he's now going to execute his life. So a lot of boys are chronologically adults, but psychologically
Correct.
childish. And and this is not all men. There are a number of men who are very focused, very serious, and holding down some great positions and are exemplars in society. Those we praise and those we say are exemplars, and so therefore we need them to be mentors also. But how he speaks, thinks, and understands life are the three ways that we need to help transition our boys into that stage of manhood.
All right, great. We're seeing a lot of comments coming in there. Absence of proper role model in the homes can be a contributory factor. And then I see, let me just see this last point that was made there. Right, retraining has to start from now and continue in all spheres.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So those are all very solid, very solid points. Mr. Church, you want to just give the audience an idea how they can get in touch with you? I know that you are life coach and all of that, and you can you do training, facilitation, and all of that. Let them know how they can get in touch with you if they want to continue this conversation after tonight.
Yeah, we do mentoring and we also do private counseling for individuals and couples. And you can call me at 868-480-0080. That is 868-480-0080. Or just send me an email by at Michael A.T Stewart, TLC, that is Tango Lima Charlie, Michael A.T Stewart, TLC at gmail.com. Yes, and we'll be more than happy to connect with you and to sit down with you and help you in the process of your journey through this life and this family life and boys going into men.
I didn't even tell the people that you have your own website and all of that, right?
Yes, yes,
You know, when you're big, you have your own website, Mike. Is michaelatstore.com? Is that it?
yes,
Or
yes,
dot com,
yes.
dot com? Great. All right. So it's good chatting with you, Mr. Stewart. I think it was a fruitful discussion. I mean, the intention was to focus solely on boys, but we touch a lot on family life. It was appropriate for tonight. Some other time we'll zero in again a little bit more on specifically on the boys and so forth. But I really thank you for your time. I know you're a busy man. I know you had another session just before this one. Thank you very much for being a part of this discussion. And for those of you watching, you can tune in again next week. Pastor Dapo will be here next week. We'll be talking a little bit more about dreams. He will be, talking a little bit how do you interpret those dreams? How do you treat with dreams? How do you understand dreams? And he will be talking about that next week. And the following week, we'll be talking about domestic violence. We have some women who have survived, have gone through that experience, who will be coming and talking with us about domestic violence. So join us next week, 8 o'clock, right here on the Tobago Inspirational Network, Facebook and YouTube. And remember to share the page, share the broadcast. Let somebody who has a son that they're struggling with tune in and listen to this broadcast even after today, and they will be encouraged, they'll be empowered, I'm sure. So thank you so much for watching. Remember, surely goodness and mercy shall follow you all the days of your life, and you shall indeed dwell in the presence of Almighty God forever and ever. Amen and amen. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you again, Mr.